This is just absolutely spectacular. Oh, I got a fish. I'm gonna get the pole out in case he comes for me.
A croc is gonna rip you straight off that raft, mate.
G'day, my name's Mike. I'm in the remote Kimberley region of northwest Australia. Up here, the distances are big. The lizards are big. Even the mice are taking steroids.
G'day, Skip.
I'm out here completely alone. I've got no food, no water, and the nearest help is hundreds of kilometres away. What on earth am I doing here? That's the same question that two German aviators asked themselves 85 years ago when they ran out of fuel here in their seaplane. They tried their best to survive their own way out, but after 5 weeks gave up and luckily were rescued on the brink of death by local Aboriginal people. I've always been interested in this story, even as a little kid, because I've wondered if I was in that situation, could I have survived? So with all the survival skills I've learned up to this point in my life as a pilot, survival instructor and adventurer, I want to put them to the test and see if I can make it out with the same conditions that these guys had. I arrived 10 days ago and I've been flat out building the replica seaplane floats to simulate those of the lost German aviators. A generous local has lent me the use of his awesome shed for the build. Close enough for government work. There's another replica of the floats just down the street at the local museum. The story of the aviators is well known, and word of my adventure is starting to get out as well. To get the floats around to the bay where the aviators came down, I need to turn the floats into a raft. This outboard engine will hopefully power it around to the bay with just enough fuel to get me there. After that, I'll have to start sailing because I'm not carrying enough fuel to cover the whole expedition. A quick test launch, a couple of adjustments, and I'm ready to go. Hopefully. There's big crocs around here, so it's vital I don't make any silly mistakes. Looks like I'm off to a pretty good start. The winds are gusting to gale force, and I'm wondering if there's anywhere safe to camp in this brown, churning tidal river. Kimberley tide ranges exceed 13 metres. These aren't wind waves, they're rapids. My destination is 200 kilometres away. There are no towns, roads, phone reception or escape options en route. I hit the open ocean, the coastline consists of mile after mile of sheer cliffs with almost nowhere to shelter. If I do manage to find a protected refuge on my nightly stops, it's a thrill just to feel safe. Occasionally I allow myself the luxury to relax for a minute and reflect on just how amazing this place is. It's just absolutely fantastic. Like, it's moments like this when all this risk and hard work and discomfort, expense, whatever, just pays off. In order to film this expedition completely solo, with no assistance, I've spent a lot of time practicing with the latest technology available. My bag of tricks includes drones that can track me, hands-free, moving cameras, remote sensing cameras, underwater cameras, and the ability to zoom and pan in post-production. Unfortunately, all this stuff weighs a ton. And it's hard work keeping all these batteries charged. My brand new engine is running rough. It keeps dropping down to one cylinder. If I reduce power, it cuts out completely and won't restart. To be honest, I'm shitting myself. I troubleshoot the engine ashore each night, stripping and reassembling various parts to try and figure out what's wrong with it. I change the spark plugs, clean the fuel filter, troubleshoot possible fuel contamination, and check the electrics and carburetor. I test run the engine for a full 30 minutes to make sure it's okay. If it fails completely when I commit to the ocean transit again, the wind and waves will quickly smash me up on the rocks, and I'll have to swim for it. I head off again. The engine seems fine, then 20 minutes later, plays up again. I'm also running low on water, so I limp up a river to search. I guess this place will just have to do. Continue to camp and troubleshoot endlessly as I inch my way along the coast. It's a constant stress knowing the engine could fail at any moment. After 8 days of high stress, dodgy engines, large seas, and the most spectacular coastline you could ever hope to camp on, I finally make it. This is where the real adventure begins.
I've just entered the remote bay where the aviators finally landed in their seaplane. Just pulling up to the exact same beach that they pulled up at.
I'm out here completely alone. No one lives out here. There are no roads, not even a fence line for hundreds of kilometres.
Time to take a look around.
I might be Nigel No Friends, but I've still got some company.
There's some croc tracks here.
Ah, there he is. Most of it is of the bitey kind. Like the aviators, I've got no food. These goannas are off limits because they're protected. No permanent water supply, and as you can imagine, the Wi-Fi sucks. My only equipment consists of a bag or two of antique stuff, replicating what the aviators had back in 1932, plus my camera gear and drones. I've got my dodgy raft, but I've deliberately arrived without enough fuel to motor out. Unlike most modern expeditions, I don't have a satellite phone. I'm rejecting all two-way communications with the outside world to add to the realism. Besides, who wants to hear the bloody phone ringing out here? I do, however, have a satellite tracker that lets my family know where I am each day. If I go missing, this will negate the need for an expensive area search by the authorities. To be here, I've secured special permission from the relatives of the Balangara Aboriginal people who rescued the original aviators.
So the biggest question for the aviators on that first night must have been, where on earth are we?
They were flying from Europe to Australia, and on this leg had taken off at midnight from Kupang, Indonesia, for Darwin, Australia. They expected a strong right crosswind, so aimed right to compensate. When the sun rose and they saw land to the south, they assumed the wind had blown them off track to the north. In actual fact, there mustn't have been much wind. And they ended up way down here to the south. I solved my position by marking the angle at which a particular star, called Mintaka, in Orion's belt, sets.
And I mark where it crosses the fishing line.
Using parallel lengths of fishing line and a hanging rock.
Let's have a look at the results from last night.
This angle, measured on an improvised protractor, will always equal your latitude. It placed me somewhere on the North Kimberley coast.
I've got a great deal of respect for these two aviators. I thought they did an excellent job with what they had, particularly seeing as they'd never been to Australia before. And it's easy to get an idea of how they were thinking and how they got along, because the pilot, Hans Bertram, wrote a book about it. And he goes into a great detail, and I like the fact that he didn't exaggerate. He just sort of told it how it was. What I'm doing is not reenacting what they did. I'm just starting with the same materials and seeing if I can use my own ideas and own techniques to make it out to civilization.
Desperate for water, the aviators drank the entire oily remnants of their radiator. They searched this creek for water, but gave up after finding only the salty, brackish stuff at the mouth, with nothing flowing down. In Northern Australia, water can often be found by searching along a river for deep pools, which can last right through to the next wet season.
This water is beautiful and fresh. I'd love to just swim in here I won't though, because the saltwater crocs are probably up here. I can see the bottom here, so I'm happy just to sit here as long as I keep my eye up. But I'm going to have a bit of a wash, but I'll just go back down to one of those little pools where I can see anything coming. All around Australia, you'll see piles of shells like this, and they're called Aboriginal middens. The shellfish that they've collected down at the water's edge, they've brought back up. This one is exclusively cockle shells. When you cook them, they open up and you don't need to smash them to get the food out.
Wild food, or bush tucker, as it's called in Australia, also eluded them. During my time as an Army helicopter pilot, I worked with a unit called Norforce, a predominantly Aboriginal unit that patrols Northern Australia. Here I was taught and later taught alongside these experts in outback survival. This boab nut porridge tastes a bit like fruitcake, without the fruit, or the cake.
Check all these out. So I'm just collecting long bums or mud whelks, and you cook them up and they taste alright. You just got to remember to scrape the snotty looking guts off with your fingernail before you eat it. That's a tip for young players.
I'm fishing with antique linen fishing line, just like the aviators. Because I'm out here voluntarily, I can't keep certain species, like this bream, if they're undersized.
Sorry for the inconvenience, mate.
My historic equipment is pretty average when it comes to surviving in the outback. Aboriginal people commonly made ironwood digging sticks like this for collecting yams. They also incorporated more modern materials after Europeans arrived. And this, well, I just dodge this up so I don't burn my noggin.
And there you go. There's a straw hat. She's pretty comfy up under here.
It's very important when surviving to maintain a serious demeanour. I came across plenty of crocs in Seaplane Bay.
Just frightened myself a little bit. I just walked around the corner here and my eyes locked onto that. Obviously it's only a little one. There's a salty.
I've been stalked, snapped and lunged at several times over the years. And because I'm gathering food so close to the water and travelling on such a low-sided raft, I've got to stay alert. I find the extreme remoteness makes the crocs more shy in some circumstances.
What?
Like this one, which I couldn't even catch on my motion sensing camera.
He's come in underneath the camera and then he did a big Yui.
And bolder in others, like this one that actively stalked me in broad daylight. This one is literally as long as my raft.
Check out that big log. He is a monster. And he's gone under. That's pretty standard. They see you, they go under, and you don't know where they go after that.
Mental note. Keep a big pole handy when out on the raft to discourage them climbing aboard for lunch. Now that I've sorted myself out, it's time to move on.
So I know I'm somewhere along the coast here, and the nearest civilization is here at Pago Mission. The southeast trade winds blow this direction, so it's best to sail along the coast in this direction. Now I won't be able to sail back into the headwind here, so I'll leave the raft somewhere around here and then walk out.
Just like the aviators, I'm sewing 2 bathrobes together to make a sail for the raft. They only used 1 float and had stability issues. I'm going to use 2 and make a catamaran. For the rudder and centreboard, I'm using improvised wing parts, which they could have stripped from the plane.
The engine's going to have to stay put, unfortunately. There's nowhere else I can put it, and I'm tight for space. It's also going to be my emergency plan if I start blowing off towards Indonesia. That's the Coast Watch plane. I think they're looking at me. But it always upsets me when they do fly around because it makes me wonder whether they think that I need help or something. So I'm just lying in the hammock in the dark. Just thinking about the last 7 days, because that's how long it's taken me to get ready. I thought I could do it in 4 days, but with all the extra filming tasks and stuff, it's taken longer. But I've come to feel at home in this little place. 7 days is enough to sort of feel the rhythm, and you know where the two small crocs live in the creek here, and the big croc that lives around the side. You know when and where to get the best food. The stars, the moon, the tide, sunrise, sunset, all those things are far more important than the other things which are normally important in life. There's no Wi-Fi, no cellular data, no meetings, no committees. It's been hard work, but it's been a nice 7 days. I honestly don't believe it. Even though I've really committed to this thing, I've set the sail, we're moving forward, those little bubbles are moving backwards. Goodbye, Seaplane Bay. Just got around this last point. The aviator's actually got washed up trying to exit the bay, I'm guessing on those rocks there.
My journey enters a new phase as I'm pushed along by the southeast trade winds.
Check this out. I wouldn't normally get that close to the cliffs, but I was busy flying the drone. The rudder got away from me for a second. Then I had to jib the main sheet, but looks like we're gonna miss it. This is just absolutely spectacular. Unlike most bush tucker, this one's actually starting to taste better with time. I've had this before in the Kimberley, where you're in the middle of absolute nowhere and you're around a corner and there's boats everywhere and they get dropped off by these motherships that cruise around the coast. Check this out, they got beach chairs all lined up on the beach. That's funny. How you going? Yeah, good.
Read about you on the news.
Oh, did ya?
Yeah.
Oh, which news was that? ABC or?
I got some food here if you want some.
Oh, no, I can't take it, mate.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm not eating it. I don't want to, you know. I'll just eat me bush tucker, but thanks. I appreciate it.
Sure, it's right, eh?
Yeah.
Interesting stuff, man. You got everything like that. Bit of Aviation rudder.
Aviation. Yeah.
So you don't want anything. We've got pieces and.
No, don't even show it to me. I don't want to see it.
I really want to find the cave where the aviator's sheltered and prepared to die. I know roughly where it is, but I'm worried the landing will be too rough.
Just pull up and there's Croc just over there. Just gone underwater. See his tail popping out just there. I'm going to get the pole out in case he comes for me. Wow, what an amazing place. This eagle's got a nest right here too. I'm just going to check that out. Got to be careful he doesn't attack me because there's a chick in this nest here. I won't get too close. Quickly check out this cave and then I got to get back to the raft before the tide comes in and starts smashing into this bay. And keep an eye out for that croc. Wow, this is it. I actually just got a bit of a shiver. This is definitely the place. It's fits the description in the books, in museum research I've done, photographs. This is where they sat for a long time, thinking they were probably going to die. This was actually the first place that he saw one of the local rescuers for the first time. He just woke up and he saw a guy spearing a fish just out there, and he yelled out a strange scream, and the guy turned around and then ran over towards him, and that was the first time that they thought they were going to survive for a very long time.
The aviators were so weak that Aboriginal rescuers kept them alive by pre-chewing kangaroo and fish meat for them. One of the rescuers, and Mary, ran barefoot for more than 200 kilometres to fetch more help. This involved swimming multiple croc-filled rivers and estuaries, including a 400 metre wide crossing of the Cambridge Gulf. I met with Matthew Weiner, a relative of the rescuers, after the trip.
A laptop's in your head.
His story still exactly matches that of the aviators after 85 years. A testament to the accuracy of Aboriginal oral history.
You had to get some fish from the ocean and chew it up and gave it to them.
You know, they weren't being treated well by non-Aboriginal people at the time, yet you were still being asked to go and help. Like, what is it that motivates you to go and help someone when you, at the time, are not being well treated?
Well, if somebody needed help, they give them help, so
Yeah.
they wouldn't care what colour they are.
Well, that was absolutely amazing. But I've got to get around to a sheltered harbour, and I've got an awesome one in mind. So this sheltered little cove is where the aviators came back after 5 days on the ocean trying to get back to shore on their raft. And their raft got smashed up on the rocks here because it broke off anchor, and then they walked over to the cave that we just saw earlier today. They sure did have a habit of having survival disasters in beautiful places. Well, I've got to say, that was a pretty successful day. Managed to sail about 8 miles. It sailed okay. To be honest, I'd like it if it went a little bit faster. I'm starting to think about food all the time. My tummy's rumbling, and I'm starting to lose a bit of weight. I've had to tighten the belt buckle twice so far. The condition just generally starts to go down when you're on the move like this and you don't have time to get bush tucker. So it's going to be a rough time ahead.
I managed to find the same freshwater pool that saved the lives of the aviators. After drinking their fill, they ate some poisonous green berries and spewed their guts out for hours. If they'd known about the water lily, they would have been truly happy campers. possibly even cranking out some kumbaya. Nearly the entire plant is edible. It just tastes like old celery rescued from the bottom of the fridge. When you're surviving and you catch a decent fish, it's a big deal, even if you are busted in your underpants.
Hey! Oh, just came off. My apologies for being caught in my underpants there. But I'm just loading up the boat and I had the line out still and I've got this beautiful little wrasse. So I don't have a pan, I'll just chuck him on the coals, but that is awesome. It's a beautiful fish too, look at the colours. This place is not called Paradise Cove, but it could be. Alright, it's time for the main event that I have been thinking about all day. Oh, where are you, fishy? Oh, look at you, where are you? Oh, look at you. Beautiful fishy. And if you cook the fish just right, it should just sort of fall off in your hands without being overdone. I think I've done it just right. There won't be any meat left over on this one.
The spectacular beauty of this place remains relatively unknown, partly because it's so remote, but also because it's Aboriginal land. You not only need permission to be here, you also need permission to film it. The Balangara elders, who so kindly gave permission and checked the footage to ensure I was not exposing any sacred areas, also gave me some other advice. Don't mark places with GPS and upload it to the internet. I think it's great advice because once you do that, it becomes a place for people to tick off on their to-do list. It encourages illegal four-wheel drive tracks, and before you know it, the roller coaster is in motion towards sealed roads, car parks and visitor centres. All of a sudden, the reason it was so special in the first place is gone. Hopefully it's enough to know that places like this still exist, and the desire to keep them that way is more important than the desire to put them on the map.
As expected, there is a croc that lives in here. And these tracks are indicating that he's on his way in.
My chance encounters continued when I got bounced by the Coast Guard, who must have thought I looked like an illegal boat arrival from Indonesia.
No. There they go. I guess they must have seen the raft with binos and thought it must have looked like a illegal arrival or something, because it's pretty dodgy. You could make it from Indonesia from here on that. Just been for a walk along the entire beach. Haven't seen anything big enough to spear, just small mullet. I don't really want to go swim after it right now. I've seen that many big crocs around that one of them could have seen me, I haven't seen it, and it's just sitting under there waiting for me, so I'm going to leave in the raft shortly anyway, so I'll fetch it in the raft. We're off and racing, pretty slow, wind's a bit light. Hopefully when I clear some cliffs there behind me, things will speed up a little. Well, I've just sailed in between some islands and it's really calm in here. And I'm just gonna make it down to that sand spit there. I'll be able to sleep better tonight. Feeling pretty tired. Got enough time to unload though and hopefully get set up before sunset. Looks like it's flowers from the kapok tree for dinner. Plenty of kapok trees around. Pretty hungry and I'm pretty tired. This lack of food's really starting to get to me. Been on the run all day. I thought I'd be getting more fish. Surprised. I guess the old antique fishing line, it's pretty thick, it's visible. Maybe it puts them off, or maybe my
speed that I'm trolling at is too slow. But all I feel like doing is sitting down having a rest, but I just got to make the most of this last daylight. That's a good sign, because most of these bush passion fruit vines for the last week haven't had any fruit, but this one does have some, and it tastes just like normal passion fruit. So if that one's ripe, it means more are going to be ripe. Oh, that tastes so good. It's starting to take its toll. I certainly haven't been eating as much as I normally would. And the last camp didn't really give up much bush tucker. Am I seeing things, or does that not look like a wolf jumping? I feel tired. Stomach was rumbling loudly all night, and got that dizzy feeling when you wake up. Not just the dehydrated dizzy feeling, but a different kind of dizzy feeling where you just feel dizzy. It's a different dizzy. So just pick a non-poisonous plant and just lick the water off. I'm halfway through my morning walk and I've got a couple of handfuls of passion fruit, and I'll wander back and should get the same amount on the way back. I'm gonna have to swim for the raft because I can't get to it any other way, so I'm just scanning for crocs. Far enough along the coast now to start looking for a sheltered place to leave the raft and prepare for the final phase of my survival journey. Well, that's it. I finally landed on the coast for the last time. I've still got the sails up because I literally just jumped out on that sand spit, threw the anchor at it and dragged myself in. Oh, I was gonna have a fire, but I'm too tired. Tomorrow's gonna be a long day. And the days after that will keep getting longer. Oh well, I gotta try and think of the positives. I made it to this far. It's too easy when you achieve one goal, just as you achieve it, you automatically start looking at the next one without taking any satisfaction from the one achieved. So I suppose I should think about that, but it doesn't help me out in the next days when I'm struggling to walk along on very little food on very rough terrain. But you get that on the big jobs. I'm anchoring the raft in deep water so it's not stranded high and dry by the tide when I eventually return. I really hope there's no salties lying in ambush for this weirdo in his birthday suit. So, finally ready to go. It's taken me a while. I'm carrying about 15 kilos of camera gear, solar panel, batteries, drone, and 5 kilos of historic equipment. Man, just trying to get to the top of this cliff is difficult. It's just full of prickly vines that catch on everything you try and go through, and you gotta go under half of it. This walkout phase has the potential to be more arduous than a Saturday afternoon trip to IKEA with kids. Cliff climbing with all this crap on
bloody hard work. Oh, that pack already weighs a ton. I'm halfway up this cliff. Made it to a nice overhang. But you got to take all your stuff off, climb up, take a piece up, come back down, take a piece up. Looks like I got one more little chimney climb to go. Must have sweated out a good litre just going up there.
I'm shooting an article for Australian Geographic magazine, but I'm so busy filming video, I struggle to remember to pull out my stills camera.
Well, I made it up the top and it's actually beautiful. I've got a nice flat area to walk across and good firm ground and nice plants. Yeah, this is nice. I so need a drink. I'm just hoping there's water in that creek, otherwise I'm in trouble.
Saltwater crocs have sharp teeth, poor oral hygiene, and luckily are rubbish at climbing cliffs, so hopefully I only have to deal with smaller freshwater crocs on this river. There's no guarantees though, so if I go in the water, I better be quick.
Check these guys out. They are one of the coolest birds I know. Bulbous, they're like 2/3 my height. Look at them, they're massive. It's now late afternoon and my shadow has swung around to about the 10 o'clock position, reference me, and that's still giving me a nice warm and fuzzy that I'm following the same creek on the right orientation. I could hear some rustling as I was just sitting around the fire, and that is a feral cat. And there's another one with him. Don't seem that fearful, which is interesting. I mean, there is no way it was ever domesticated. We're so far away from civilization. These things are responsible for killing so much wildlife. It's not funny. Aussies are out and I'm naked. I've got my knife in my hand, just in case they were dingoes. If they were dingoes, you got to be careful if there's more than one of them. I knew there was two.
Luckily these dog's nuts taste better than their name suggests.
So I'm just gonna carry them along in my hand and eat them as I walk.
Doing this solo without the emotional and safety support provided by a film crew keeps it more realistic.
A little bit of sugar.
Filming at the same time is hard work though, and provides the opportunity to screw up several things at once. Come on, you bastard.
Swallowed a sandfly. Come on, autofocus. It's not that hard. Oh, yes! I got it! Woo. Eucalyptus trees often have these round golf balls, snooker ball size round things hanging off them, and they're made by a bug. Well,
sort of like a grub. And inside that ball, you can eat the grub. So I find myself a bush spoon. Fairly disgusting looking, really, isn't it?
I spared no expense to get a canvas water bag just like the aviators, but then I forgot it and left it at home. So I'm therefore risking extreme dehydration every time I attempt to cross long stretches of dry ground with no water.
Sorry, little fella.
People ask me if I feel alone when I'm out here like this. I don't really. There's no boogeyman out here. There's risks, I'm very conscious of that, and I'm more exposed because I'm alone, but I just rationalise scary thoughts by looking at facts, using common sense, and looking for a safer option if I think the risks are getting too high. Of course, sometimes there is no low-risk option.
So I've decided to try and get across the river here. It's just wide enough. I could jump it fairly easily with no pack. So I'm going to have to drag the pack across afterwards and do a few complicated things. But, you know, with two people, I could easily just throw it to each other. But one person, it's much more difficult. So I'm going to try and do it quick before I lose light and before the crocs get an idea that, hey, something's happening over here.
If I twist my ankle here, I'm screwed.
It wasn't very graceful. I had a good plan, jumped over, and then I adjusted the drone's position and dropped the rope, and then I lost the rope and then had to jump over and get the rope. Anyway, I made it, and the crocs don't have enough warning. I was worried if I'd spent the night on that bank, they would have hung around and been more likely to be there in the morning, but now I'm just gonna chill out, wash my dirty, stinky clothes, just camp somewhere on this riverbank. I just put my feet up for a bit, and my feet are blistered and sore too. Oh.
So it was a bit warm last night, so I did sleep better. And there's nothing else for it to just pack up and keep walking.
It seems like a bit of a struggle at the moment, but all you got to do when you feel like you're facing a struggle is think about someone who's struggled harder than you. Think about people in wartime, famine, natural disasters. There's so many things where people have done it way harder. As you think like that, often you just go, oh, well, yeah, it's not that bad. The aviators never would have been found without Aboriginal people. And it's amazing that during the search, the authorities assumed that Aboriginal people must have already murdered the aviators, so they had chained up 9 of them in the search party. And yet they continued to help search and found them. And that generosity of spirit is a value that is important in non-Aboriginal culture, but I think Aboriginal people pull it off better than us in so many circumstances. When I've asked for permission to come onto their land, and I've done it many times, I've always been granted it, and it would be so easy for them to just say, no, you've taken so much, no, just stay off my land. But that generosity always strikes me with Aboriginal people. I'm walking in the 1.5 hour and 2 hour blocks. So I just started this one, I got to go till 10:30. I just got my first glimpse of the ocean.
The strain of the aviator's 43-day ordeal caused the mechanic, Adolf Klausman, to lose his mind. He was permanently confined to an institution and died an early death. Hans Bertram recovered and eventually managed to retrieve his seaplane by fitting an odd-sized spare float and flying it out. He continued a full and adventurous life and passed away in 1993.
Well, I've just popped out on the coast, which is great, but I'm just so tired. I've come across the road. Oh, and an ancient tractor. So I must be getting close. That'll be the mission tractor. So this is it, the abandoned pay-go mission. If the aviators could have made it to here, this would have been the closest civilization. And they could have shot that galah, oh, it's a cockatoo. If they'd made it here, they would have been saved. The only way I've made it here is because I've known where I was, they didn't. How to find water, they didn't, and how to find food, they didn't. But I don't begrudge them at all. If I had come from Europe and knew what they knew, and I did as well as they did, I don't know if I could have done it as well as they did. I mean, what I've done is probably less than a tenth of what they did because I've known the skills. But every time they got to a brick wall, they'd build themselves back up again and go at it again. So I've got the utmost respect for them. My journey has been a different journey to theirs, but I've only scratched the surface of what theirs would have been like. So I've got the utmost respect for the aviators, and I've also got the utmost respect for the Aboriginal people who rescued them.
This might look like the end of my journey, but I'm far from it. Pay-go mission was abandoned 80 years ago, so I keep walking into the night until I'm stopped by Crocodile Creek.
I've just woken up.
My feet are officially killing me as I continue walking, 7 to 8 kilos lighter than when I started,
The skin fold is pretty much zero.
in search of a dirt track big enough for occasional traffic. I hitch into the Aboriginal community of Columbaroo
I know I stink, I'm sorry about that.
for the most enjoyable iced coffee and cherry ripe ever consumed in the history of mankind.
Oh, I've got an ice cream headache.
I was planning to have a few days rest to get some strength back.
So I got myself some luxury, at least for a night or two. Jeez. Check out that dude.
That goes out the window when I hear of a fleeting opportunity to get back to the raft that doesn't involve a 70-kilometre trek through the bush. This plan involves hitching a boat ride to a remote bush camp where I managed to scrounge a further trip by chopper back to the raft. My cache is still intact and my remaining fuel is just sufficient for a further 100-kilometre ocean transit against the trade winds to Columbaroo.
Here we go again.
Here it will be picked up by the mission and go on display in their museum. It's a fitting end because this is where the original aviator rescue was launched from. Finally, I managed to bum a ride on the local mail plane out to the real world, where I can once again enjoy the best that modern life has to offer.
An Australian pilot has now recreated their feat, braving crocodiles, heat and hunger.
The expedition got a fair bit of media attention, both during and after the trip, which has been a new and inseparable part of the experience. But when I'm an old bugger, the part I'll remember most is being alone and free in one of the last truly remote and beautiful places on Earth.